So today we have Donny Mack with us. He's a builder down in Texas, and I appreciate Donny's time today to tell us a little bit about his business and the experiences he's gone through. So, Donny, tell us, what do you do?
Well, we currently build custom homes. We are a fixed price contractor. We do maybe 6 or 8 homes a year.
How long have you been in the business?
I started Beaver Builders about 1994. Prior to that, I did a lot of renovations on the side, kind of to help other people out. We started the company because we wanted to do accessible housing, because my wife being an occupational therapist, it kind of fit right in there. But we learned real quick that the market wasn't uh, big enough, large enough that we could make any decent money at it. And then we did just regular remodels, and we kind of progressed into some commercial work. Did some commercial work for a while, and then got in production type building, semi custom. But you know what? There's no fun in that. I'd rather work with an individual and work toward their dream, and that's kind of what we've been doing.
Yeah, it's a different type of build. The spec build obviously is much easier, at least in my opinion. It's much easier from the standpoint of you get to make all the decisions. If there's a problem, you just fix it right there on the spot. There's no change orders. There's no owners to ask. But there is that personal relationship and the fun of building a custom. They come up with some crazy ideas, and we get to solve them.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You know, the challenge I have with a spec building, I'm trying to build a product that someone's going to buy. The nice thing about a custom home is I'm building that client's product. I'm not having to worry about, if it's going to sell. Or I never did sell finance like a lot of spec builders do. They finance their own builds. So we've always had to get bank loans. And if it drags out for an extra couple of months, you end up losing your profit. So it's more challenging. When it comes to the customs, I love customizing homes. We just finished a house this past year. We had 137 changes in that house along the way.
Wow.
And we're set up in a way that we can monitor those changes, and we can help that client make that truly custom home when it's all said and done.
No, that's great. And like I said, I've done a few of them myself, and they are a lot of fun. Just that whole experience of working with the client and building their dream, because that's really what it's about at that point. I had one builder describe it to me as he feels like I'm more in the entertainment business because they don't necessarily need a lot of the features in these custom homes. So part of it's entertaining and bringing them through the process, because you are building their dream, which is a little bit different than just, building for shelter.
Well, there's a difference between needs and wants. And sometimes you got to help that client differentiate between the two, especially when they're on a fixed budget.
There you go. There you go. Yep. No, that happens all the time. So you've been an entrepreneur 30 plus years. Um, what advice would you give anybody who's just started out? You kind of, I won't say stumbled in it, but evolved into where you are right now today. Uh, Sounds like you've kind of worked your way through that. What advice would you give to builders starting out in deciding what they want to do, how they do it, etc.?
The most important thing I can recommend to anybody wanting to be an entrepreneur: build your business plan, and don't build it on a hope and a dream. Build it on facts. Do as much research as you can about a company, as about an industry, or whatever it might be, your marketplace, and put it on paper, and then maybe have someone else look over it for you. But that's the thing I see. Was a lot of good craftsmen out there wanting to be entrepreneurs, but they're not good businessmen. So you need to build that business plan to have a good foundation to work off of. And then from there, you can never learn too much about an industry, the one that you're working in. I've been doing it for quite a while. I was doing remodels prior to starting this business, but I can tell you right now, I don't know it all. And I know I like surrounding myself with people that are professional, they're quality minded, and we're all the time getting tips. I taught a class for the association yesterday, from project management, and we had 41 builders in that class. And, they were even throwing out some ideas that I hadn't thought about as far as project management techniques and things to look for. So it's great networking.
Yeah, no, that's I like I said, I've done a lot of remodeling in my day, and I thought, after 30 some years, okay, I've pretty much seen it all. And then I'd
Yeah.
sign up a new client, and I'd open up a wall and go, Well, and now we have this one I got to figure out. And there's always something to learn. It's one of the, to me, it was part of the fun and the challenge of the industry is it's never routine. There's always a new challenge. There's always a new problem to solve. And I guess that's kind of how I look at builders. We're problem solvers. And that for me is the fun of it.
That was one thing I enjoyed about doing the remodels because you're always scratching your head when you open a wall up. And I always told my clients there's no such thing as a weight bearing wall that can't be removed. So we hit some pretty interesting things when we're working on trying to accommodate the client's dreams.
Right, right. So when you talk about a business plan, I know I completely support that option because I've done some business plans myself for a few ideas I've had, and I've actually thrown the business idea away because I never could make the numbers work. And I know a lot of guys jump into the business without a business plan. And I'm going to assume when you say business plan, you're talking about the financial side about that as much as a growth plan. What are the biggest elements that you see in that business plan? Is it the numbers or is it the strategy?
Well, it's both because you got to cover all three operations of a business: your operations, your sales and marketing, and your production. And you got to touch on all those aspects when you're building that business plan. You can't just focus on just production. You can't just focus on just the operations part of it. You got to have an overall full view of it. You know, that's one thing that we slowed down a lot because I've been neglecting my sales and marketing, and it's starting to show. So if it ebbs and flows, whichever. I guess my biggest advice is if you're good at something, focus on. If you're not good at something, say sales marketing, find you a team member that can be part of that team that can help you with that sales and marketing part of it. Because you won't find anybody that knows it all about everything. Again, find someone that's good at what they do, put them on your team, and build that team and that culture that people want to expand in.
I think that's a really good point. Is obviously when we start out our businesses, we wear all the hats. We have to do it all. It's kind of the trial by fire in the beginning, but there's no way we're good at all of it. We can't be good accountants, good salespeople, good at marketing, and good in the field and write a fantastic contract. It's just impossible for anybody to be that good at everything. And I think once we realize that, it can help us grow as an individual and then grow as a business. Um, what areas did you start delegating off first in your business as you started to grow?
Well, I don't like dealing with money. I like the numbers, but I don't like dealing with the money. So that was the first thing we did. We hired a office lady that came in and took care of the books and helped manage that part of it. The sales and marketing. I studied that Texas. It's not too bad. It's pretty simple. I've been in the production field most all my life as far as construction, so it wasn't too bad. But that other area, I didn't really care for it. And then as we kind of started to scale, I kind of focused on what I like. I like production. So we had a sales and marketing separate firm that we brought in to help get some ideas and work through that.
Oh, that's great.
One thing I want to point out also on a business plan, when you build that business plan, you need to set up an exit strategy. You know, a lot of people overlook that because you need to know what direction you're going in. I was talking to some guys the other day, and that's just happened to say, well, what y'all's plan? They didn't have one. Well, if they plan on building this company up with a bunch of assets and sell off the assets when it's all said and done, you want to start growing your assets. That's one thing nice about a remodeler. A remodeler, they have a whole list of clients that they've been doing work for, and that could be a good asset. Just you got to focus on that end game also as you're building that business plan and as you're working.
Oh, I think that's an excellent point. And I see that as well. A lot of guys start out and they have no end game in mind. Whether that's maybe building it up to 5 million and selling it, maybe it's keeping it for life,
Yep.
or maybe it's diversifying at some point. But they really have no strategy, and without that strategy, you can't build towards that end goal, whatever that may be, because you don't know what direction you're going.
I agree. And, my goal is to have someone take over the company. Well, I want to train them the way I want it done. So, if, I want to keep the company going. So I want someone to come in. I'd rather hire from within and turn it over to that person and let them keep going with it. But, that's my strategy. So we're trying to focus on that as we go along.
What's your timing on that? What do you, is this 5-year plan, 10-year plan? What
I don't really have
have
any
you started
comment on it.
that end game process at all?
Well, the beauty of it is I enjoy what I'm doing. My dad retired early, and so did my brother, but they were in a high union camp with the high stress. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing, so why quit?
There you go.
But
There you
it
go.
may be it may
That's
be
the beauty
outlast
of
another
it.
5 years. It may be last another 10 years, but who knows?
So you mentioned to me also that you're involved in a lot of association work in your community there in Texas with other builder associations. How has that helped you as a builder yourself, and why do you spend so much time on those associations and those groups?
Well, as I mentioned before, I don't know it all. And it's good network with a bunch of guys that have experiences and they can bounce ideas off of them and get an idea what works and what doesn't work. The next thing is education. I've been on the education committee for the Dallas Builder Association for about 24, 25 years now. And just, networking with in those settings, talking about things, we may be talking about project management like we did last night and get out talking about business management. But it's just ideas that people are floating around of similar uh, uh, jobs that makes it nice. And then there's always you get discounts for material. You get if you go to look for a new trade. If one of you say your plumber goes out of business, you need somebody else. Find someone out of the association because generally those guys are the ones that are really business minded and can take care of you.
And they've already probably vetted a few good subs for you.
Oh yeah,
You
we
don't have to
talk a lot about
search
that.
the phone book for them and start all over.
Yeah, what chuck in a truck is kind of hard to hire sometimes because you don't know what you're going to get out of it.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a flyer, and often it doesn't work out. There's a reason they are where they are. What in running your business, what's the best financial advice you've received or that you give other builders as you're working with them?
I tell them to watch the pennies. You mean watch your money. Pay attention to your invoices. Like the class I teach, the biggest area for variance and cost is through lumber. And being a fixed price contractor, I worry about all the numbers throughout the process. And when you have that many hands touching that high of a value of a part of the house, it's the human factor. There's so many areas in there to allow for misses. So I watch the numbers and see how the ratio is going and the variances. Have it set up to where when you bid a job, at our house we break it down to about 300 tasks, like that spreadsheet I sent to you,
Right.
and we do a variance analysis on that throughout the whole process. Because the time that we want to find out that the lumber is off is during framing, not at the end of the job. Look back at it. A good example of that is we built a house a couple of years ago. I guess it'd be last year, and we're supposed to have 5 units of OSB shipped to us, but they only shipped 4. Well, when the material shows up at the job site, we take pictures. Well, when we called, we short a unit of OSB for decking. I called my salesperson, sent him the picture, confirmed that they only shipped 4 rather than 5. They sent us out another unit of OSB. Think about that. What is it? 66 sheets times about what? $20 a sheet.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Right.
It don't take much.
And that's
And
an
then
easy slip to miss in the chaos of a job site, lumber being delivered, and the truck's there, they offload it, and 20 questions were asked in the meantime while that truck was dumping the load, and
yeah,
it can just slip
exactly.
by. And you're right, that it can add up. It can add up. So you're tracking your job costs weekly, daily, on at least on a regular basis, so you know what's going on in your job at all times.
At least weekly. We pull draws every week. So we want to make sure where we're running, we want to make sure the earned value has been paid, that we're not just paying off a percentage of what the bank says we need to be receiving. So we watch the numbers pretty close. And we also, what another big thing I've been doing for, I don't know, since I took the Goldman Sachs class 10, 12 years ago, we take 1% of our gross that comes in the business, we settle off the side into a holding account. It doesn't take long to build that up pretty good. And whenever you have, like, again, fixed price contractors, if we miss something, we've got to have some way to pay for that. Or if the bank works their draws off their own draw schedule, it doesn't match your payment schedule,
Right.
you got to pay your subs. So if a guy gets got to get paid every week, you got to be able to accommodate that payment and then reimburse that account once somebody comes in. So it's a lot of advantage to that. And like right now, we're slow. So we're using that holding account to carry us through December when the next jobs kick in January.
So you've got that set up like an internal working line of credit that you can always just tap into, at which point it's pretty much interest free because you're not tapping into a bank loan at that point.
Exactly right. We used to have a pretty significant line of credit when we did spec houses, and you got carrying costs. So you take that risk of carrying cost off of it and do your own financing when you have to, and then it makes things a lot better.
No, I like that. I like that. You need a reserve out there. Stuff is going to happen, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
So you're sounds like you're very on top of your money and your finances. How do you, like you said, you do weekly draws? What are you doing up front as far as deposits, pre-construction agreements? How is your cash flow handled overall on your projects? What are you doing?
sure. What we do on our jobs is that we don't do have a professional agreement up front when we're doing the designing and bidding. If we have a fee to the design, the homeowner pays a fee. But if we don't, they don't pay us anything until we sign the contract. So at time of signing a contract, we get anywhere from a 5 to 10% deposit at that time, and that helps cover our overhead costs per the written contract we have with the client.
And then you're doing a weekly draw with the client, if you
But
can.
it depends. So, we just finished a pretty, it was like a $2.3 million house. We got monthly draws.
Oh, okay.
And then if we're, some jobs we may do bi-weekly. The thing about it is, I don't want the client to get ahead of them. I want to keep that earned value consistent because you never know when something's going to go south or a catastrophe is going to happen. And you want to make sure you have your funds available to pay those guys that busted their hump for you and took care of you. You want to take care of them.
Right, right, right. Yeah, it sounds like you're on the same mindset as myself when I say we're builders, not bankers. Um,
Exactly.
we don't. If we wanted to be in the banking business, we'd be in the banking business, but we're not. Um, so that's phenomenal. I like how you're handling your cash flow. I think that's great, and it's good for guys to hear that they don't have to play bank. They can get the owner to fund their own project, and that's the way it should be.
Well, that was what was so stressful when we were doing spec houses to me is the money because, the bank's going to loan 80% loan to value. Well, you mark up maybe 20%, but then you still got all the other fees on top of that. You have operating expense to run the job until it's done.
Right.
So it's the margins were when it's all said and done and smoke cleared, the margins were way too thin for us. In consideration of the risk we was taking.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, it's a completely different game, and I've heard a lot of guys say in the spec building world, it's great until you get stuck with one.
Yeah,
And then it's
it's great
a
till it's
whole
not.
new world.
Yeah, and I'll wait. We've spent on about 1 point something million in spec houses, and that's just we carried that for almost 2 years.
Yeah, I've done it.
So
It's
yeah,
yeah, it makes you shake your head and get back into remodeling or custom homes real quick because you got cash flow there.
I agree.
Um, so you've grown a lot. Would you share what your annual volume is? How much are you doing a year now?
Hey, we do between 6 and 8 projects a year, and they range between about 500 and $2 million.
Okay.
So that's roughly what we're running.
Okay. Well,
Some
that's
years
nice. That's a
it's
nice
pretty
business.
consistent. Yeah.
Um, and so what's been your secret to scaling and growing the company?
Pay attention to your business and where you want to be. I don't know that there's one secret that would fit everybody, but I can tell you that I learned a long time ago that volume is not necessarily profitable, and that sometimes it's better to scale back and build a culture within a small network of team members that they can enjoy what they're doing, they can live comfortable, and we're not stressed out over too many jobs going on or not enough jobs going on.
How many team members do you have now?
We have 5. So
Okay.
we're a fairly small company, but we have some good processes in place that allows us to do what we do. We don't build on a subdivision. We build out in the rural areas. So some of our jobs can be up to 30 or 40 miles apart.
So how much time you talk about stress in the business? I have always found construction to be stressful, the industry as a whole. How much time are you spending a day running your business, and involvement in the projects themselves?
Probably about 6 to 8 hours a day. Again, because we set that up. We don't, you know, people that work for us, they take off when they need to take off with the family. Uh, I don't want to be working 7 days a week anymore. I worked retail before I started my company. We worked for Montgomery Ward. I was a manager for them guys, and it was 7 days a week, 12, 16 hours a day, making good money, but I hated it. I didn't have a life, I had a family.
Right.
So I said, you know what, this ain't worth it. Now, there are days I work maybe 12 hours, but I would say on average it runs about 6 to 8 hours a day. And that's most of my staff are that way.
That's
We
nice.
rarely work weekends. We keep the communication going. We got, just I can't speak more highly about my team members, but it starts from the top and works its way down. You got to be aware of that.
So how are you handling your field operations? Do you have superintendents on the job sites? Are you running mainly subs? How are you structured from that standpoint?
We have two superintendents that, you know, not really project manager, but superintendents that run the jobs. We we use not to be an infomercial. We use Builder Trend
Okay.
for job logs, and because it's so user friendly. I know it's expensive, but to me, if you look at the cost versus what it would be to hire somebody else, it's pretty cheap, and it flows good with the clients. It flows good with the staff. So it's a good software to be using for us. There's a lot of them out there, but that works best for us.
Well, that's the key is to find one that works for you.
Yeah.
That's well, and your clients. Some of them can work great for you, and they have terrible client interfaces, which doesn't help either. You got to keep all that communication going.
Well, then not every client wants to use it. We had a client on a pretty high end home that he said, I don't like to be on the computer. He said, if you got something to talk to me, call me. If you need something to sign off, bring it to me. I'll sign a piece of paper, but I do not want to work on that software. And I get it. So
Right,
we just accommodated him.
right. As long as you know what the rules of the game are, it's easy to play. It's when you're
Yeah,
sending them the
exactly.
emails and they're not answering. You're like, what's going on? Um, yeah, he's not going to answer it, so you might as well just print it out and bring it to him. He'll take care of it. So that's good. That's good. When did you start implementing Builder Trend into your business and in some of the software?
Sure. We started out with Co-Construct back in the early 2000s, I think, when it first came out. I was having issues, keeping track of clients, not clients, I call them prospects. We may have 10, 15 prospects on the books at any point in time, and I
Right.
kept losing them. So we used that for that, and we started scaling a little bit with it, getting more into the software. But then I realized the production part of it was weak. The client part of it is very strong. So doing my research, I went ahead and we went to a Builder Train, and that was to me almost to catch me out. The scheduling aspect of it to me is weak. It gives you a good Gantt chart and it goes to the calendar view, which is fine. But there's things about keep in mind, I came from a Primavera scheduling software, and then
Right,
we went to
right.
a Microsoft project. And when a task starts or is completed, the predecessor or successor can't modify that. Well, in Build a Trend, nothing gets anchored ever. So once if the linkage is there and something has to get moved, even though that item is completed, it carries it with it
Oh,
unless you break that link, and that just makes my hair fall out. And I ain't got much hair left, so uh, that's my biggest downfall with that one. But other than that, every aspect of it's good.
and you would, I assume you would recommend that builders seriously look into finding a software that works for them. Um,
You find the software and you onboard that software. There's a lot of good softwares out there. Like when I go to IBS, I look for stuff like software. I try to find a replacement. I haven't found one yet, but there are a lot of good things out there. But I found if it don't matter how good the software is, if you don't onboard it, take the time to learn it and all that stuff, you're wasting your money.
no, I totally agree. I've seen that too many times. Guys bring it on. They don't spend the time and the effort to get it all set up, and then they complain that it doesn't work for them. Well,
Exactly.
it doesn't work because you didn't implement it, which is
That's
just
right.
like anything else. It's not going to
Kind of a
work for
two-way
you.
street, ain't it?
What's that?
kind of a two-way street, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's the old garbage in, garbage out. If you don't feed it, you're not going to get anything good out of it either. So
Yeah.
I know you're busy. I know you're on a tight schedule. I wanted to try to get just a 60-second wrap up in your overall. What would you tell a builder who's trying to scale? What advice would you offer out there as far as their approach to business and to success?
Well, I guess the foundation part of that is look at your own business. Look at your business and make sure your business is set up to scale. Because just because you're doing more job don't mean you're making more money.
Right.
The next thing is look at the market. What is the market accepting? Are you one of 50 builders in the small market, or are you one of two builders in the small market? And what are they looking for? You got to understand what's going on outside of your net also in order to scale to it.
Oh,
That's
that's excellent advice. I'll relating from my standpoint. I started a remodeling company at one point, and all I wanted to do was whole home remodeling and additions. And given the current economic status, nobody was doing whole home remodels or additions. It was all baths and kitchens. I was like, you know what? I'm going to become the premier bath and kitchen guy in town because nobody's buying what I'm selling.
mm-hmm.
So knowing your
Like when we
market
first
and who
started
you're
out.
selling to is important.
When we first started out, my goal was I thought the market was huge for accessible housing. And again, with my wife being an occupational therapist, man, it was a cat's meow. But the market wasn't there.
Right.
We went to all kind of different type of trade shows, stuff like that, but we couldn't get enough to really scale where we wanted to be. So we had to, punt and reevaluate what we do.
Well, that's good. I like the fact be willing to reinvent yourself in some respects. You're still a builder. You're still, in the industry, but you've got to be able to sell your product and grow and scale. So I appreciate that. So I'll let you go, Donnie. I really do appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for the advice and just sharing what you've learned in the industry and your business. I do appreciate it, and I'm sure other builders out there will do the same.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And again, if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to help them, whatever I can do. I don't know it all, but I've seen a lot. And that's kind of what we do. We got to network together.
I totally agree. I totally agree. We can all do this together.
All right. Have a good day. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, Donnie. I really appreciate it.